You're listening to High Street Radio.
Documentaries on High Street Radio.
The following program takes a look into the often controversial world of striptease clubs and the women who perform in them, and it contains themes of an adult nature. Recorded entirely on location in San Francisco, High Street Radio presents Stripper Chicks.
I enjoy the income. I enjoy the freedom of the job because you don't have to punch a time clock. You're not responsible for a schedule in most places. I started to think, wow, hey, I'm not bad looking, and you know what? My body's not so bad after all.
You know, I just needed I needed a change in my life. I needed some fun. It was not something I ever imagined myself doing.
I have discovered that being a sex worker is one of the most efficient and expedient ways to maximize the amount of money I can make in the time that I spend doing it.
When I'm at home, I'm somebody else, and so when I'm at work, I'm a different character. I wouldn't be Damien in a grocery store.
People want to be somewhat of a bad girl or a bad boy.
I believe that it's my right to do what I want with my body.
I'm a stripper, and I like it. My name is Damien. I'm 32 years old. I've just been married to a wonderful man. I'm an exotic dancer. I entertain men and women as well. I dance erotically for them. I dance topless on stage and in a bikini in front of them.
My stage name is Cayenne, and I work at the Lusty Lady, and I've been working there for 2 years. I am both a stage performer and a private pleasures booth performer, which is where I do erotic shows one-on-one with a glass divider between me and customers. The Lusty Lady is specific in that it doesn't have one-on-one interaction between customers and performers where direct financial transactions are made. It's a peep show. My personal background is that I'm 27 years old. I grew up in California. I went to college in Massachusetts and came back to San Francisco to work, and I'm supporting myself as a Master's of Social Work graduate student by being a stripper.
I'm a former professional ballet dancer. That's what I did for a long time in New York. And we have this self-conscious thing as ballet dancers, or even former ballet dancers, about age. We always want to be 21 years old. And in the business that I'm in now, it kind of, reaffirms that, or kind of, we all want to be 21. Well, not necessarily, but it's nice to be young. And it's nice to look young in the exotic dance world. Born and raised in Arizona. Spent 12 and a half years as a dancer in New York. Been doing exotic dancing for 5.5 years. I started in El Paso, which was kind of scary. El Paso, Texas is down near the Mexican border. And I started on the day they were having a dance contest, and I won. And I took that as a positive omen to keep going. I moved on to Phoenix, where I continued dancing in maybe 10 various clubs, topless and nude. I'm a dancer. I'm relatively attractive. I have personality, and charm helps. All those things make up a good stripper chick.
My stage name is Jasmine, and I am 39 years old. I live by myself in a studio apartment in California. I have worked in industry for 12 years. I have a degree in laser technology, and I worked in science for 12 years. I've been a stripper, some might say dancer, some might call me an exotic dancer, for 6 years. You know, I just needed I needed a change in my life. I needed some fun. It was not something I ever imagined myself doing. I was 33 at the time, and I owned my own home, and I had my prestigious job at a national research facility here in California. And I was bored, and I hated it, and I was discussing with my hairdresser one day my dilemma. And he just suggested it to me. He said, you know, you've got a nice body, why don't you try stripping? And I had never thought about it. And as I said, life just wasn't holding much interest for me in anything. There was no creativity in my job. There was nothing different in my life. It was the American dream, and it was pretty humdrum. And he suggested it, and I went, and I looked at a few places in San Francisco, California, where I dance, and that's how it started. Yeah. I entertain gentlemen. I dance on a stage. I'm topless for one song, usually. I dance for 2 songs. I make conversation. I approach the men that come into the club where I work, talk with them, I flirt with them, and I ask them if I can dance for them, which basically it consists of me taking off my dress. I usually wear some sort of a cocktail dress. I wander around on the club floor. The club has 2 levels. I wander around on the club floor in a cocktail dress or an evening gown, and that's what I wear when I'm talking with the customers. Men and women. Women come into the club. Not as many women, but women do come into the club. And if I ask them, and if they allow me to dance with them, then I take off my dress in a sensual way. I like to say that I've perfected the art of sensuality. And I do a dance right in front of them. They're seated on a couch or a chair, and I dance right around in front of them in my bikini. So I wear my top and my bottom. And then on the stage also. On the stage, when I do the 2 songs dancing on the stage, I'll come out in the dress, and I'll move around to the music, and then take the dress off, and then eventually take my top off. I'm only topless on a stage at this point. I have danced topless, and I have danced nude, but now I don't do that right now.
I'm very limber when it comes to exotic dancing. I'm known for my stretches and my ability to move and do splits. Guys find that really exciting. The one-on-one private dances I feel perfectly confident about because already the man has said yes, and already I'm brought into his personal space, and he's already happy with me. Now, as far as the stage goes, that's the only part of the business I will probably never get over. See, I was used to people coming and buying tickets to come see me and my fellow performers on the stage. Now it's, well, maybe we'll look at you, maybe not. And I'll put on a show, and I'll dance up a storm. And they don't understand a real dancer, most of these men that come into the clubs. They don't know what they're watching. Some of them do, and they're very appreciative, and they let me know. But many of them are there to look at a body. And I don't have the typical Barbie doll body. I didn't buy the boobs. For me, I've never known anybody like myself, because I think I'm the most monkish stripper I have ever met. I don't think I've been... This is personal, I don't know if I should go into it. But, yeah, I haven't been in a sexual relationship for 2 years now. And there I am, every night, acting as if I'm, you know, the queen of sleaze. And that I'm in bed with a different man every night.
I love performing. I had studied acting my entire life and wanted to be an actress. I actually went into a club to be a waitress because a brand new club just opened down the street from where I lived. and it was a beautiful club with, the doormen wore tuxedos. There were limos pulling up outside. There was a beautiful fountain. It was a 5-star French restaurant with a world-renowned French chef, and I thought, wow, I'd make some money there as a waitress. And this is before I had my breast augmentation, so I absolutely had very small breasts. And I went in to be a waitress, and they said, well, we're all full up of waitresses, but we'd really like you to dance. And I said, but I don't have any breasts. And they said, well, it doesn't matter. Men like all different sorts. And I said, okay. So I tried it, and I fell in love with it. And I thought, wow, I can actually go to the mall and spend $100 and not think twice about it. But not only that, I thought it was really interesting. It was an interesting atmosphere to be in a situation where it doesn't matter if you're topless, And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I fell in love with it.
Getting paid directly to do something that's really clean and clearly explicated is so much better than a lot of the underhanded, implied, assumed roles and sexism that come in any number of other jobs that women are expected to fill in the society, including, I would add, being married. Honestly, I think that what I deal with in terms of emotional stress from exposing myself to stigma or negative customer reactions is not all that different than what already exists in society for women. It just happens to be more concentrated in the strip club. It's more clear, it's more brutal, it's more honest. And I think it's very interesting to draw the connection between how men and women respond to sex workers, and right now I'm just talking about women sex workers. I think there's a very interesting connection between how we treat sex workers and how we treat women at large. And if women who choose to have an overtly sexual lifestyle, either professionally or personally, aren't treated well, what does that say about how society regards women in general? That women in general only have any status or respectable esteem if they conceal or repress their sexuality.
A lot of the men actually say, wow, this is so relaxing, this is better than a massage therapist. And they're very open about why they're there. It's like, yes, just take me away and take over. And I also think they're titillated by that. Finally, they can relax and let a woman take charge. Men and women are different sexually in how they do sex and approach sex, and women needing more time, men being ready at a drop of a hat kind of difference. But I think that they're both the same, and that they're not communicating to each other and looking at themselves and communicating to themselves asking themselves, what is sex to me? What does it mean to me? How important is it to me? What can I get from my partner? What could I ask my partner? I think there's a similar lack of communication. Believe you me, I'm looking, I'm dating. I've just gotten pickier with age and time, and the more I see out there, and the more I develop, the more I want the other person to be of the same development as I am, and there are few of them, at least, that I've been able to meet. I belong to a matchmaker here in the Bay Area, very high-priced Marin County, la-di-da matchmaker, and I've been on several dates in the last several months, and not one of them, not even the matchmaker, know what I do for a living. Of course, if I were to meet somebody and we got involved, yes, they would eventually know. I would feel safe enough for them to know.
Many things in society aren't socially acceptable, and some of them for good reason. Murder isn't socially acceptable, it shouldn't be. But there are aspects of each human that are natural, and what I'm speaking of now is strictly the natural, the sexual aspect of each human, the flirtatious, seductive. I believe we all have this. Women, men have it also, but there is nowhere that anyone can actually act this out. We act it out through our actors on television. We identify. That's why we love to go to the movies and watch other people perform on the screen, because we don't get to do this in our daily life. We live our lives through other mediums, through other people that are more courageous than us or more able to step outside the norm. And there is that aspect of going into the strip club for myself as well as for some of, I can see for some of the other women, whether they're willing to admit it or not. I mean, that's why I think men come in. I mean, they come in for many reasons, but one of the reasons being that they actually can go in there and they can be voyeurs. It's okay to go in there and look at women, whereas you do that. You can't do that at work. You can't hang up girly pictures anymore. But there's this whole side to humans that it has become very negative to even express. And I'm talking about the sexual side. So I don't go into the club and do anything sexual, but I go into the club and I'm sensual. I'm able to be, as I said, I'm able to be flirtatious. I'm able to wear tight clothes. I have men putting me on a pedestal, which I think every person in society at some point wants to be put on a pedestal. I can be like a seductive siren, and then I can go home and just be my regular self, because that's not really who I am all the time, but that is an aspect of me that is very important to have been able to be played out. I think that many women want to do what I'm doing. I see that when they come into the clubs and they have a few drinks and their inhibitions are let down, and then they suddenly want to get up and start dancing for their boyfriends, or we've even had some women try and get up on stage. I think that men and women are pretty similar. I think that, of course, there's the whole testosterone. Men have testosterone, women don't. Some women have more than others. I think that they're basically similar, even in their sexual needs and desires. But yes, society conditions it out of them. Society conditions it out of women from a very early age. When boys grow up and they first realize that they have a penis and that they can get an erection, it's just a natural thing that most people assume and talk and laugh about amongst men and families, that men will masturbate. Little boys will masturbate. They just do. I mean, little boys, they've seen it. Little boys get erections. It's harder to distinguish in a girl when this sort of physical stimulation is happening. So it's okay for little boys to be doing this, but nowhere ever is a little girl taught how to have any sort of physical stimulation, what to do if she has a physical sensation. It's just completely denied. It's not something that is talked about. Whereas men, it's just natural. Men will do this and they have to do this, but women don't. It's not something they need. And so yes, I think that society conditions it out of them. I think that the church conditions it out of them. And I think that it's a way to control women, to keep them separated from their natures.
The problem with marriage now is that the way it got sold to people is as this romantic myth that really undermined the sexuality of women, of course, the economic power of women as well. So when you put women who are married in a situation in which they interact with women who are married or not married, but actually choose to make money for sex or have sex for money, the very act of having sex for money is the same thing as what marriage has been historically. What sex workers do takes away the romantic myth of marriage, which has got to be really unsettling or dissatisfying to women who have built their identity and their lifestyle on this romantic vision of being married. Most people who have the attitude of telling other people what they can do with their body, and this would range from sex work to abortion to a number of things, really honestly think that, and this is of course speculation, but I think that they honestly believe they're trying to make the world a better place. And I think that would lead to my next two questions for this population of people, which is, why are you scared of sex? Because I think that sex actually has an incredible power and capacity to teach people about themselves. And if you look at our educational system, we do not educate people, especially women, about their sexuality. And the very act of separating people the deliberate act of separating people from knowledge about their bodies and about their pleasure is fundamentally inhumane and abusive. I mean, for a society that is so pleasure gratification oriented, the fact that we don't teach people basic information about their bodies and pleasure, which is hello free. So the sex negativism is really a big issue. And then I think the one other question that I would direct towards critics of sex work is to really analyze the distinction and like what are the differences between women's work that is socially sanctioned and women's work that is not socially sanctioned. Because right now, women's sex work labor is not socially sanctioned when women are in control of it. I mean, the biggest problem is that women have control, or through sex work start to suggest that they're achieving control. And there are so many other areas of society where women work that are not censored by society. And I would really ask people, why is it that you're targeting this one? Is the real problem around women's power and women's equality? And if so, that's not a problem with sex work. That's a problem with people's resistance of overcoming patriarchy.
I've been raised in a rather liberal family. At first I did have issues with, a lot of men would talk to me and say, well, what's a nice girl like you doing in a place like this? And I would find myself apologizing for my job. And at one point I stopped and I had this discussion with myself, so to speak. I explored that question. I thought, what am I doing? And I thought, well, what is the absolute worst aspect of this job? What would, this industry in general, what is the worst? And I thought, well, that would be prostitution. And I thought, well, what's really wrong with prostitution? And I really explored that, and I couldn't come up with any good answers, that there's anything at all wrong with prostitution. I think it's a perfectly, other than it being illegal, I think it's a logical way of making money, and I have nothing against it. So I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with what I do, and I love it. I'm very honest about what I do with everyone except my grandmothers. And there's a couple people in my family who don't know what I do, just because, for the same reason I don't want my grandmothers to know. They would worry too much and they wouldn't understand it quite. My father knows what I do. Obviously my husband knows what I do. His family knows what I do. Everybody else I know knows what I do. I absolutely love it, so I don't really... And why be a hypocrite about it,
I kept it from my family for 4.5 years, and then it slipped one day. I was living by myself in San Francisco and wasn't used to living by myself. So my mother called me for my birthday, and she's like, how was your birthday? Did you work last night? Because she assumed I was cocktailing. And I wasn't used to having conversations with people because I would be at home alone. So I just started chatting on and on and on. I said, yeah, the bouncers last night, they put them on the stage and then they put me on the stage and blah, blah, blah. And I forgot who I was talking to. I was like, oh, no. And she probably would have just let it, slip. But I guess I overreacted and told her. So now only the women in my family know. I made it a strict rule that my sisters do not tell their husbands, and that my mother does not tell her husband. My mother married a Catholic man. Eventually, I will let my brother-in-laws know. Actually, one brother-in-law does know now. He does. And I thought it was interesting because my sister started to act differently around me, around the two of us. After he found out that week, they came to visit a few months ago.
I lied to my mother for a year because my dancing career didn't start, it started in the strip club, but it started even before that. I started go-go dancing. And that was something that my mother knew I was doing. I was doing that like once a month, and I was making hardly no money, and there was no clothing removal involved. It wasn't until I decided to quit my job, because for 1 year I did both. I would work full-time during the day, and then part-time at night I would drive an hour one way into the city to start to dance for the evening. So it wasn't until I decided to quit my day job that I told my family that I was going to be quitting my respectable technical job and become a dancer full time. So it was then that I told them, and it was, even up until recently, I had a lot of shame about what I was doing. So there was, and there was fear, right, and I didn't want to hurt my mother, but I've always I was feeling shame outside of the club. I was feeling shame internally. But it didn't stop me. There, if anything, there were two parts of me. There was the part that was having fun, making money, needing the attention, and enjoying the stage and the men. And then there was the part that was shame-filled, but that was not as strong as the other part. So I would go in and I would do the job, and then if I had to talk with anyone or would think of talking with anyone, that's when the shame would come up.
There is a little something else I've gotten from it. Considering my background with my father, I realized that I was working out some father-daughter male issues too. I was getting some therapy. I had a lot of self-hatred issues concerning my body and my looks, and the exotic dance world has been very helpful. At the same time, it does take somewhat of a performer in you too to approach it, to approach the exotic dance scene.
You cannot put this sort of a thing in a closet and hope it goes away, because it won't. There will always be this sort of industry as long as there are men on this planet. I would definitely say that if the general public has a problem with it, and would like to explore why they have a problem with it, go visit a couple of strip clubs. And sit down and actually talk to some of the girls. They're really not as dingy as you think they are.
For people that have criticism, I would just say, what are you so afraid of? And why don't you go into a club? Why don't you educate yourself about the thing or the things that you're fearful or judgmental about before you actually pass judgment? I think that all women are beautiful, and I think that all people are beautiful. I think that we're all basically the same, that we're all just big little kids, and we all want to be loved and accepted. And I think that each woman should learn how to celebrate her body and her sexuality. I think that she should do the things that allow her to feel very sensual and pretty, and that she should just remember that she is basically a sensual being. We're all sensual beings. And enjoy life. Enjoy life and enjoy her body in a respectful, healthy way.
Well, it depends on which group of critics. There's the critics that are trying to close the clubs down for political reasons. And we all know that those same politicians that are trying to close a club down are in the clubs themselves. So right there, that's an obvious hypocrisy. So that's one form of critics. Then there are the critics that are sort of the fundamental, religious, maybe female critics that need to, I feel, explore sexually, explore sensuously, that's a better word, explore their sensuality. And the more that they can do that, and the more that they can communicate as sensual beings and be open sensually, the less money I'll be making. And it would be a better world, actually. There's a reason why I'm out there making this kind of money and doing this kind of work, because people apparently aren't doing this in the bedroom. Yeah, they are not giving and communicating with their bodies in bedroom. And if this somehow stimulates something within you, to go out and take some dance lessons, whether it's ballet or salsa or striptease class. Get out there and move your body and see how it changes you, and see how it makes you more of the sensuous goddess that you are within. Explore that.
Stripper Chicks was produced by Jeff Eaton, and it was a Wiremore production for High Street Radio.